Hello, and welcome to Transformation by Truth podcast, where the called become the chosen, and those who have been dedicated to serve the Most High receive the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as we progress our quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. My name is D.L. Anderson. I'll be your tour guide. Let's get started with today's lesson. Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast in the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. Today, we have a brief word from your host and a reminder that exciting times are on the way. Today's podcast is entitled The Father's Controversy with Leadership, Part 6. And these things we write unto you, that your joy may be full. 1 John 1:4. The podcast objectives are: reveal why the Father desires the wheat and darnel to coexist until the time of the harvest, prove how this present age is a dress rehearsal for the age to come, and analyze the conclusion of the harvest. Now, our first section is entitled, To Destroy All. On Wednesday, we introduced the parable of the darnel in the field. In today's podcast, we will focus on three of the primary facets of this parable and how they apply to us in these last days. This knowledge is crucial, for the only way you can obtain the seal of Elohim is to transform yourself into the model of spiritual wheat. And the key to this transformation lies within this parable. The fundamental aspect of this parable is found in Matthew 13:28 through 30. In these verses, the servants ask the master if he wants them to gather up the darnel the moment they realize the darnel appeared. The master answered them, saying, No, lest while you gather up the darnel, you also uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and at the time of harvest, gather the darnel and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my granary. From this discourse, we understand that it is the Father's desire for the wheat and the darnel to coexist until the time of the harvest. Looking back, this coexistence has continued for almost 2,000 years under its present construction. Here's a question. Why does Elohim desire for the darnel to grow up together with the wheat? The answer: to prove who truly has the spiritual quality of wheat. The role the darnel plays in this procedure is sure. It is to compromise and expose those who don't have what it takes to be spiritual wheat. Remember, by definition, darnel is poisonous, and it resembles wheat from an outward perspective. This is the epitome of the church circuit, i.e., men and women who look the part but are spiritually poisonous. And as I testified earlier this week, they are infecting each other until entire assemblies are compromised. This is why those of us who are truly wheat, those of us who are being sealed, those of us who will be saved, cannot remain. For we now know the purpose of the darnel. It is to destroy all those who are not walking in spirit and in truth. Now, our next section is entitled, for the age to come. There is a saying that reveals only the strong will survive. Only the strong are going to win. 'Tis a true saying, for the master of the darnel is Satan. And although he is nowhere near the level of our master, you must appreciate the fact that he is a formidable opponent. For this cause, we must be strong in our master and the power of his might. Trust me, the danger posed by the darnel is beyond significant and nothing any true contender should take lightly. This reality alludes to the focal aspect of this parable. That is, the counter transformation of those who have the potential to be wheat, i.e., the called, into the darnel. Consider the following interest point and remember it always. Many who are darnel did not start out that way. On the contrary, many of them were called, and some of them were once the spiritual equivalent of wheat. Here's a question. How could those who were once wheat be compromised to the point to where they have become darnel, i.e., the offspring of the wicked one? The answer? The primary answer is deception. However, all the degrees of lawlessness are in play. We know this because the word of truth reveals the darnel are all those doing lawlessness, and lawlessness is the broadest category of sin. Therefore, if you have not overcome sin in your life, rather, you are losing your individual battle with sin. You are spiritual darnel. This is precisely why you will be removed from the earth by the force of death prior to the reign of Yahushua Messiah. It is because there will be no stumbling blocks in his reign. This is why his reign will be highlighted by 1,000 years of peace on earth. Here's a question. If sin and lawlessness are the primary reasons why our world is in the disarray it is in, how can sinners and the lawless participate in the reign of Yahushua Messiah? The answer, they cannot, for it is impossible to have 1,000 years of peace without first eliminating the sinners and the lawless. This truism reveals this present age is a dress rehearsal, a proving grounds for the age to come. And seeing as sin is the primary disqualifier for entering into the reign, I strengthen my case against lawlessness in every form of sin. Now, our next section is entitled Peace, Freedom, and Prosperity for All. This brings us to the critical aspect of the parable of the darnel in the field. That is, the chosen elect will reign with Yahushua Messiah for 1,000 years in a renewed earth that will be highlighted by peace, freedom, and prosperity for all. Isaiah 2:2-4 reads, And it shall be in the latter days that the mountain of the house of Yahuwah is established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. And many people shall come and say, Come and let us go up to the mountain of Yahuwah, to the house of the Elohim of Jacob, and let him teach us his ways, and let us walk in his paths. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah and the word of Yahuwah from Jerusalem. And he shall judge between the nations and shall reprove many peoples. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither teach battle anymore. In a world marred by death and bloodshed and oppression and war from the very beginning, I think I speak for all the set apart ones when I say, I can't wait to live in a world where there will never be war again. This is one of the reasons why men and women will live to be for hundreds of years. Not only will there be no more wars, there will be no more sickness nor diseases. Life expectancies will be so high, a young person will be one who is 100 years old. Isaiah 65 reads, and I shall rejoice in Jerusalem and shall joy in my people. And let the voice of weeping no more be heard in her, nor the voice of crying. No more is an infant from there going to live but a few days, nor an old man who does not complete his days. For the youth dies 100 years old. And they shall build houses and inhabit them, and plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For the days of my people are going to be as the days of a tree, and my chosen ones outlive the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth children for trouble, for they are the seed of the blessed Yahuwah, and their offspring with them. And it shall be that before they call, I answer, and while they are yet speaking, I hear. Wolf and lamb feed together, a lion eats straw as an ox, and dust is the snake's food. They shall do no evil, nor destroy in all my set apart mountain, said Yahuwah. I could go on discussing all the amazing aspects of the renewed earth we will inherit when Yahushua Messiah returns, but I can never do it justice. Eyes cannot see, ears cannot hear, the mind cannot fathom what Elohim has in store for those who love him, who wait for him, and are called according to his purpose. Tying this realism to the theme of the series in some of the earlier lessons, the purpose of leadership is to prepare you for this occasion. It is to facilitate your transformation into spiritual wheat. If that is something the Spirit is calling you to, then I ask you to consider it faithfully. From my prayers and fastings, I sense something crucial is happening in the spiritual sphere, and I expect to be initiating this quest very soon. These may be some of the last podcasts I post to the general audience. Only time can tell. Until then, I encourage you to be led by the Spirit, for the burden of deviation in this day is eternal, and no one will recover. Alas, they will miss that glorious day when there will be peace, freedom, and prosperity for all. Now, here is the final word. We are all being transformed, everyone in this world, in one way or another. I made this statement in the very beginning when I first launched this podcast. I followed it up with the question, how are you being transformed? And what are you being transformed into? The answer largely depends on the men and women you are following, i.e., if your leaders are wheat, follow them, and you will become wheat. If your leaders are darnel, you will become darnel, and you will not be here much longer. When the righteous shines forth as the sun, you will not be here. Now, here is today's assignment. Continue to pray and fast as you are led by the Spirit, and ask the Father for insight as to the times and seasons we are living in. And reach out to me if you have any questions at all at www.pinnacleofholiness.com. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, The Father's Controversy with Leadership, Part 6. And the next podcast is The Father's Controversy with Leadership, Part 7. I will post it sometime next week. Until then, have a great weekend, my friends. Continue to be led by the Spirit, and I promise you, I will too. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Remember to tune in with us every Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you haven't already, visit us at www.pinnacleofholiness.com and make sure you sign up to join the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life 2022.